All right, since I still have plenty of this piece of metal I bought from Home Depot, this channel, I decided to start making my strive here towards making a tensioner with the belt that I said, like I saw on that original thing. Now this whole contraption here was $6 on Rock Auto, $6 and change. This is not very wide, okay? So I'm not sure if it's going to be in the exact place I need it. So between shimming this, which you know, because I'm dealing with what I have here, you don't want this to be super tight anyway. You want it to be, you know, up against one way or the other, but I can put a washer behind here to make it tighter, and it'll push it back more. Then again, why would it push it back more? Yeah, it would probably push it back more. It really depends on how this ends up. You can see there's a space there as it is. It comes with other washers, so like you really want to bottom it out if anything. So, but what I'm basically doing here, and the reason why there's two different sizes here, I'm going to weld this flat over here with a U channel like you see on modern cars that have this type of setup here. Okay, so the U channel is going to go in there. You slide it out of the U, and then I'm going to make it so that it can come out. Now, it might be a little bit tight, but I can just grind this down a little bit. You know, it shouldn't be an issue. I ended up missing the mark, and that's why it's a little bit off here. But ultimately, it's looking pretty good. You know, the only difference is, you know, how far in and out I have to go. You know, but this ended up being a pretty good solution using what I had. You know, so I just got to see what the deal is with this guy and how you know, like I said, I'm probably going to do something flat. Maybe I can do like a cone shape, but I have a feeling though it might be a little bit on the long side. Maybe it's just best that if I need to remove it, it has to, you know, you unscrew it and let it fall out the bottom, you know, and that's how you reattach it as well. But I got to make it so the bolt can slide out. So if I put it on this one, if I weld something on this one, I might have more because you know, this thread goes to the bottom. Then where am I? Yeah, the thread goes to the bottom when I'm close to here. So just filming this now, like I said, I do everything on a whim. So you know, I was looking for a way to make it removable. That was the main thing. You know, I can also make it so that I go over this some way and I bolt it to this and to here. So this thing is removable. You unbolt it, or you put one bolt in there, and then it's just, you know, slide it right out, and it has somewhere to bottom out on though. So I think this was pretty neat. This came from a Infinity GXR. After doing a bunch of searches, this is what I found. But the original one, you know, it's more like like a Dodge Caravan wide serpentine belt thing. So since they did it with the original one, I don't see why I can't do it with this one. And between this adjustment and this adjustment, it should be fine. And I could put a longer belt, which will, you know, go around the air compressor more. You know, it'll have more surface area. Not that it didn't have enough, but I realized that, you know, on the setups, and it's raining now, of course, right? It downpoured a little bit. Um, what I noticed is that uh, the ones that I did see here, they had the AC compressor more over here, but then there was an air pump over here. So the AC compressor was mounted solid, and then the, you know, the emissions air pump, that was the thing they were able to adjust to make the belt tighter. So be nice if I did that first to figure all that shit out. But you know, and the ones that the other ones that had the compressor here with the old style Chrysler compressor. See, I was under the impression that the Volare only had this style. So everybody's after that bracket that's only on a year or two. It's probably only 79 or 80, or both. You know, 79 and 80. The 78 and 77 and 76, they ain't got it. You know, so my only problem is, like, when I took out these gold bolts that I had, you know, the grade 8 bolts here, they're probably longer than they need to be, and I had to loosen this guy to get that thing out. Chances are, if you have to remove that bracket for any reason, which you really don't, I mean, I made it so that you can do the power steering pump belt with no problem. and the AC belt for that matter. So it's not going to be an issue. Only if you're doing a water pump, which all that has to come off anyway. So it's getting better and better as time goes on. So I think it's going to be pretty kick-ass. All right, I've been killing myself because I made some mistake. This actually came out really good. Let's see, just to show you what I did. So this is the space that's got to go behind it, but I put another washer in there just to take up a little more room. And with the way I put this guy here, see what I did? I made it so that it was serviceable. You can unscrew this, and this slides out, and then it falls on the floor. See? So it's pretty neat. My biggest issue is that there's still some mistakes, but because after I was done with this, hang on, let me just put this back together. Hang on, let me get I don't know if you can see that. So even though, oops. So even though this came out really good, and I put it flush with this piece of metal here, which was, supposed to be true. So I don't think anything could be possibly off here. But the problem is that, like, because I didn't want it to hang out the other side here. If you're hanging out the other side, there's more chance of me having a problem and me doing it wrong, So now, why is this tight now? Did I forget it? I must have forgotten it. Where'd it go? Oh, it's right there. Let's do this again. So, I am very, very tired and very pissed off at myself. And I told you how many times I just wing things. So, when I was younger, I guess things used to wing a little easier. Anyhow, so this is going to work good because there's like a built-in washer to the bolt, and it's going to push up against itself, and this will hold that down, and it also makes it serviceable. It fits in the groove there. It's only one bolt. This can move around, not a big deal. But the problem was I was right on. This is the bolt that I had the compressor on. I was right up on top of it, and I go, "Oh my God, what's wrong with me?" So I was just, in general though, I was still like, why is this thing like even the other way I had the issue, the problem. Why is it, the same size? So then I started looking at the old GM compressors, and they had a little spacer here. And granted, it's more true. But then I was thinking, okay, so then I was doing that. Okay, when I push down the belt, and I go, oh, now I'm back to the same problem where this is just going to pull right in then. So I got to support the top. Well, I'm probably going to, because ended up drilling this all the way out. I'm going to make another one of these probably, and I'm going to go back to my other idea of putting the acorn nut in that groove, and that'll keep it steady. Okay, so I had to make, because you see this was not really wanting to do this, but I had to. But I had to decide which way I was going to go with this without doing a ton of extra work, and so I went with this. I put the same thickness of metal there as there, and so it's just completing the loop here. And I put these two pieces. I know they look different. This one has more notching to do because of this metal piece in the front where it's all open. This is more square. This is more of a triangle. And once I made it, I drilled directly through, so all the bolts should be at the right length. But I'm looking at them, and I don't know if it's me, if it looks like it's a little more space here. I'm putting my finger there. I mean, it seems awfully close, but when I look at it, it just seems like it's like this. And, if you go side by side with this pulley, I mean, you could tell there's something off here. And I have no reason to believe that this pulley is off. That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, this thing here, because of the nature of C-channel, I put it flush there. I mean, I suppose this could be off. It's a possibility that, once you start loading it up, it finds its center. But you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's not as off as I think, and it is just this, you know. And the thing is, I've never whacked this down to really like kind of. I don't think it's gonna flatten it by any means, but uh, see, there was one angle it seemed okay, and then another angle where it did not. But again, I don't understand how this can be that far off. You know, I also had to make this contraption in here. This is a nut that's tightening this in the front here, but I had this nut to actually spread the bracket because what was happening is that this guy here was kind of curling in on itself. So I had to force this bracket out open because before when you just dump it in, you just tighten it and that's it. And the bracket conforms. So now the bracket was kind of pinched in a little bit. So now I had to force it out a bit, and that way this gets tightened. So I'm debating whether or not I should weld these guys to this once I make sure that it's true. I gotta obviously I gotta mount it in the car to make it, you know, somewhat working. But if there's an offness of the angle, I made these holes very small to try to fit as perfect as possible. You know, exactly 3/8 of an inch, and it's probably best I take one of them and just enlarge in the hole so there's just a little bit of play there, and it can only go in one direction then. So that is something. But I can't say that I took these back out and lined them up with each other to make sure the holes were right, because then I'll have a better idea. Because I mean, the way I'm looking at it, it's hard to say, but it looks like this side is out more, and if that's out more, I don't know. I have it in that groove there, but I moved that other pulley too, and it seems to be a lot better. So between this thing here, when this is loose and you're tightening it down, you're pushing it down with the bolt. Okay, this thing is loose. It's gonna hit the top of the belt and find its center, and then when it has its center, then you wing it down. You know, so I don't know. I'm surprised that it would alter that much. You know, but this thing here is obviously not perfect. But other than like grinding, it's flat. But you gotta make sure you're in the right plane. But it's cool because it's just lined up with this belt here. You know, it's just going to catch it. That's what I was kind of worried about. And so there's a lot of good things here. I was trying to. Yeah, like I said, this angle I think was okay. It was a matter of this angle here. Now it's raining. When I go like this, yeah, that angle looks like it's fucking horrendous. I'm looking with my eye though. It doesn't look that way. Hang on a second. Damn. I'm looking with my eye. Sorry. Because you see none of the face, but yeah, this doesn't. Stud that was welded in place. So if one stays in place and then you play with the other one, yeah, like this, and when it's all the way up like this, it should be up. So I'm not, but it could be achieving the same thing if this is out. So I got more figuring to do. It's probably not that bad because when everything's loose and you bolt it in the car, I think it's going to find its center. But ultimately, uh, you know, it's not what I wanted to do, you know. And in hindsight, I'd be like, damn, I should have just made this solid. If I just put a pulley solid and then use this guy again, because remember I was have it in such a way that I said, oh, I have it the wrong way. I'm adjusting it wrong. But still in all, like it would have been better if I continue this bracket going up. I hate to redo this all, but I made it a lot more complicated than it needed to be. But I should have thought about, you know, going outwards. See, also I'm looking at this clutch is kind of, and it's not from me pulling it off. I don't think. I sure hope not. But I just think it's the nature of it. It's kind of like a flimsy piece of metal here. You gotta really look at this one when you're comparing the two, and it's a little hard to do that. Ultimately, I think the best thing to do is just to put it in the car and see what the deal is, because I should be able to modify these brackets. I'm going to take them off and compare them, and maybe just put a drill bit through them both and see how that goes. You know, put a bolt and nut for one hole because I know they'll go through, and then just enlarge in the other hole because it's definitely some kind of issue here. But they should have both lined up perfectly, so I'm going to try that too. Just slide on, you know, the bolts, two bolts, and because I don't know why it seemed so nice before, and just by adding these things, it kind of put a wrinkle in everything. I mean, and these are welded flat. I mean, I try to put tack welds on the first one that I put on, but I couldn't on the other. It's pretty much there. I mean, I know when you look like this, but they both come up, you know, they both come up about the same. So other than going straight in, I just don't see that being the difference of the pulley, you know. So I gotta initially put it in the car, but I'm gonna double check these and then take it from there. Well, this sucks. After looking at it more carefully, this thing is definitely off because when this guy is in, okay, because I put the here's for reference. I put this guy in here. Mind you, this is like I did this whole thing by eye, but it's like I put this thing. I mean, it's right on the money. It's contacting it perfectly. You know, and I would assume the other side would be the same. Yep. I mean, contacting solid. I mean, you know, I was trying to put the magnet on here, but when I went like this, that's when I realized I put a straight edge right on the face of this. It's like it's wider at the bottom, big time. Actually, right there, it's not. It's funny. Yeah, when I didn't have it tight. So when I go like this, it's definitely off. And who knows now how off it is this way. It's a little hard to even judge it. But in order to touch the threads, which I can put a washer in front, I had to put this this other I cut a washer and put it in there. I thought it would actually like kind of center it out, you know, this guy in here. So again, it's very possible it finds where it needs to go. But this spacer here is very square, and it looks like it's square that way, just not the other way. I don't understand it because again, even when I went like this, and it's funny, like I put it. Here's the one thing I did notice that the space here is much smaller than here because I had shoved it in. I put a tack weld on one side and then I put a tack weld on the other side. I thought it was going to be right, but the space in here is not equal to the space here. So that's why it kind of looks like it's out in the end, you know. It's so funny the way it's throwing me off. But you know, just putting it flat there is off. You know, not by much. It's almost like I can use the chop saw and actually trim the front. You know, it's like this. This is kind of flush, you know, but it's what, an eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch? No, not a quarter. Hang on. Yeah, that's like an eighth of an inch. This green thing is a quarter-inch steel. How the hell is it off that much? I welded it right to this front bracket, which is square to that. I just don't understand it. So it's very possible. The C channel is really meant to be mounted flat, not sideways. I just thought it was a good opportunity to use the metal I had and to, you know, do something crafty like that. I don't know now if I can fix it. I suppose I can kind of hammer it in almost, you know. But I want it to look right, you know. I don't want it to have fucking ding marks on it. I just assumed that would be fine. I'm using the same metal on either side, you know, within reason. Stupid light. It's killing me. I guess I gotta sleep on it. Oh well. Okay, what fun. So I cut a relief cut in here because now I remember off here. It was off on the other side too. I figure these are scrap pieces. Probably not a good idea next time. So I didn't want to bother cleaning it up or cutting it up. In the end, I hammered this a little bit this way. Oops. I ended up hammering this way to catch the welds, to get closer. And I just remembered that. So I heated it up and I bent it back. And it seemed to want to almost naturally go there, you know. And come on. Can't do it with my knee. Okay. So when this guy is in now, when I hold a straight edge, hang on a second. I wonder if it's distorted, like where I just checked this and it seemed to be okay. Oh yeah, that's a huge difference. It might be a little bit distorted down here, like it naturally wants to curve up, maybe because the way it got cut, and that might be part of the problem. Here, let me go back down here. No, that's not bad. That's a lot more in the ballpark. A lot more. So what I might try doing is just bolting it to the car, and you know, with everything bolted, because I feared moving it a little bit too much, and worried about something else getting off. So I think I'm going to bolt it in the car, and then play with it, bend it where I need to get it, tack weld it, and then start going to town on the welds again. And I think that'll be okay now, because I'm pretty sure, you know, the main one wasn't really the issue. And I sure as hell hope I didn't, you know, mess it up. You know what I mean? Like, because I had this in the vise, but this thing was like right on the money. You know, I hope this didn't change. It does. No, it looks all right. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. It actually looks straighter. You know, I hope this guy didn't get bent on the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, because that's touching it. I'm just looking at something. I don't know why. Everything looks funny to me. That's a lot better. But that's what I did. When I had welded this piece to this, I had tapped this in because, like, yeah, I'm not using that. And just to make the weld closer, and I think that's what it did. It like an eighth of an inch at the top, but it makes a difference when you have bearings spinning. So this was very unfun, but I was like, how the hell am I going to fix this? And I was like, wait a minute, if I just cut it there, the whole thing here should bend. Not, I wasn't expecting it to bend very well, but I figured it would, none of this part would bend. It would just bend at the source there, which is where it was originally bent for the most part. And, it doesn't even have to be perfect. It just has to be in the ballpark, but it wasn't even in the ballpark. Like when I did this before, because there's flat surface there, and granted, it's not perfect, but this, it had a huge space down here. I mean, and I was able to go like this. I was able to rock this back and forth, and I cannot rock it. And now when I go like that, and I shine it like that, that looks straight, or at least in the ballpark. You know what I mean? I don't know how straight this is even. It's not bad. How about this way? Yeah, that looks pretty good. So, and that big ass flat washer there, it should find the the center, but it's possible I can also just touch this up a little bit. I would think I'd rather do it by hand, like with a nice big file, perhaps, and that should straighten it out. So this has been a video of what not to do, pretty much. So, oh well. No matter what I did. And now you see how much room I have now. and the belt comes off relatively easy. And this tensioner is left-hand thread, so it screwed me up when I first started playing with it. I'm like, what's going on here? So now it's underneath, and you can see I need right there. It'll be plenty tight when I tighten this, but I don't want it there. I want it, and this will still be good because you're tightening it from two different positions. So you got this guy here, and I'll put the other, like I said, the other one that has no threads in there, and I'll zip it in, and it'll make it tight, and then you fine tune it with this guy, you know. And ultimately, I guess it could have been done where this guy here was, you know, stationary, but it does make it easier for putting on the belt and doing fine tuning of the belt, you know, because you're not muscling it over, you know. But it's pretty good, you know. It's really not a big deal with this one. This is not as loose, but it's so when that guy's tight, I mean it's pretty kick-ass right there. So I'm pretty happy with this. And then, like I said, when I zip this in, it'll get it a little bit tighter. That's all you need. And there's plenty of room to get this guy out. You know, this is a much better. If anybody learned anything from what I'm doing here, it's if you're gonna make a bracket, have it swing like that because it's very odd. You know, the whole thing ended up being very odd. And I was gonna put shit on that car, but I put the compressor on here. I needed a sliding. First of all, I bought the bracket, that universal bracket that fits that compressor. But I had to do a lot of welding, a lot of figuring out and everything. And I put this long, similar to this, but a little bit different, where I'm tightening it underneath, and the whole plate moves, and then you lock down the plate. And I had less problem, you know, but I had a problem everywhere I went, you know. So this is fairly, you know, it was fairly, you know, decent to do this, you know. This is fairly decent, I should say, because I can get out all the bolts. I'm not worried about that. I just that the big bolt down there, I had to grind it because it's a little hard to catch sometimes. So I made a little. I grinded it there so it goes to the bracket easier. But I think I ran out of threads because of the size of the bolt. And it was working before, but I believe I had some of this. Yeah, that's right. I was supposed to put this nut on it. I had this nut. And then, yeah, I had this nut over it. That makes it threads. That's why it's sticking out a little bit down there. It's no big deal. But I'm going to weld this back up again because now when I'll be tightening this, you know, I don't want this to flex. But it's definitely in a better place than it was. And it looks correct, you know. And I would be just as happy to use this, you know. But I also think that, but not really though. Like this, I did test it out, and I just showed you already with the over. There's plenty of room going around this. This makes it even more, you know. It really does. I just never put one of these on a V belt. I didn't think it would be possible. If I said it in the video, but then I realized Chrysler did the exact same thing. They did it in '76 and '77. Now, however, they changed they changed the setup in here to a whole different bracket. Almost like they had three different brackets in this car, you know, depending on whether or not it had, you know, an air pump. I hope I wasn't covering my microphone. Anyway, so far so good, and I think I'm going to take it off, weld it, and paint it, and get going on this. Okay, so this is what I ended up doing. I was mistaken when I thought I would need this. This is the threaded one, and I made a new one. I made a new one. This is the one that went straight through. I drilled it out, so I can just zip it that way to get it closer. And like I said, there was a lot of problems with that, but this looks really good. Now, if I loosen this, I can just put this on the outside of it, and then put this guy. But this hole is different. It's a different bearing. I'd have to find the right pulley, and it's not really that far off. You know, as far as what was my original problem. Once I cut that relief cut, it was okay. But I tried bending it more because it's not 100% perfect, but it's really not too bad. You know, and it's just not going to be an issue in this case. You know, even if I put this and I have it going over, it would need a different style belt. This right here, it's funny how it looks like it's all tight. But you just go like that and it's loose. So right here it's tight. So when I tighten this guy, it's going to hold it in between two of them. I can go up and down, you know, to make it a little tighter. So I'm real happy with this. You know, I just thought I would need this. I thought I still keep thinking in my head, you know, I thought this was going to pull it towards it. I guess if I went over, how would that work? I would be pulling up to make it tight, but it still may it may not even be right. But I know I had to go with a different belt, like it wasn't fitting. See, like technically, um, yeah, I'd have to play with this and just to simulate what this guy would be, because the bearing is really shot on this, and it's the hole isn't big enough for it. So see, and this, the trick, you gotta get it around. Okay, and then this is the all the way down position. Yeah, it's a little. Yeah, I had a feeling this was going to be tight. You know, it is. I need a longer belt in order to make this work. Going that one, actually, that went on that way. It jumped on the front pulley here. There we go. So ultimately, see how that's pulling? That pulls it in. Okay, so yeah, if that pulled it, if I did something like that and pulled it in, then I can see like it doesn't want to go down because of the belt. But obviously, you can go in. So then that's when I would use this. So if I use this, I use this. If I use this, then I go back to the original one. But I think I'm going to go with the smooth pulley because it's not 100% you know perpendicular to the engine, or what would that be? I mean, it might even ride like that. It'd be funny. But no, you need the groove of the belt. But there's plenty to go around here to make this spin. It's really not an issue. So this would this guy here would basically be in the same place. You know, it probably. I think I was toying with it, and I had to put a thinner. I didn't, because the back one is fat. This one is the thinner one, but the hole is not the right size for the back part. It's a bigger nut on there, and to mess with it. So then what I did is I used the regular bolt here just to try it, and it looked fairly well. But again, if it's one thing if it's wrapping around the pulley, but if let's say it's slightly like this or slightly like that, and you just catch the top of the belt here, see it's very little contact, so it doesn't really know it's out of alignment right there. It's not by much, but that's the good thing. And you see, right when you look here, it looks fine. You know, I don't know if when you look here, it looks a little off. I think it does, yeah. Hard to say. Let me get there with my own eyes. So the compressor pulley looks so funny. It's, you know, like it's so much shit sticking out of it. It's really not that bad, you know? It really isn't. But I know it's slightly like, it's like out on the bottom. So I was trying to take like this, yeah, I had this pry bar, and I was taking this pry bar and, and, and trying to bend it this way. I don't think the compressor can be here when I'm doing this, but also don't want to fuck up the compressor what I did. But when I was doing this, the whole compressor was moving. It just doesn't want to bend, you know. Maybe if it got heated up, but it's really not an issue. It really isn't. Like I said, even with this, even if it was off, it's still like straight up here, you know, because it's only contacting this little spot. Obviously, I need to do better work when it comes to, you know, engineering something. I should really just buy the universal bracket. That way it's like the initial bolt-in is not a big deal, you know. But yeah, ultimately underneath, using this pulley is a good thing, because even if, like I said, even though it's off more on the bottom, even it's still, it just conforms. It's not really an issue, you know. It's a wide surface for the belt, and I don't see it being an issue. This is in a definitive groove, and it really depends on if there's problem with the system, belt squealing, something like that. We could change the other way, and it shouldn't be an issue. And even if it's off a little bit, I can make a shim. You know, you can, like, if you got a washer this fat, you can shave it to make it so that, and it may be difficult to make it stay in there, but there's so many other things you can do, like you can notch it so it goes into that groove. You could do a few different things, you know, just so it goes where you want it to go, and it goes in the right line. So that's something else, you know, after the fact. But I think I'm just going to weld this up and paint it up, and go to the next step, you know. But ultimately, this is going to be under there, like I showed you first, and you know, and that, see, like right there, I was able to. You wouldn't want to do that. That would probably fall off, even if you played with that. But yeah, I'm gonna do it this way. Whoop! Oh, damn it! That's nice. Bend it. Why don't I? Saw that thing move. Forgot to loosen that. But even if this piece bends a little bit, I have it in the groove here that it hits. You know, it shouldn't be an issue. So I can go like that, and this guy will come off. It's really not too bad, I must say. I'm pretty happy. So with that, I'm gonna go to the next step and attach these lines. I gotta do the lines inside the car, those two small lines, and put these rest of the belts back on, and I'll take it from there. Okay, so these, after I took it apart, these wings were moving, and you know what? This thing in here has a purpose, because if you back off a little bit too much, it'll kind of move these ears in then. So it's there for a reason, and I pretty much tack welded everything in place so it stays. You know, it's a little more than tacked, and I'm going crazy. But there I went nuts with a bunch of weld, and then I grinded it on this side, welded it from that side as well. And when I paint it black, it's going to look a lot better. You know, I think it was a good idea, everything I did. It just wasn't really implemented very well. And, you know, the end result is I think it should be fine. And hopefully I don't have any more issues. But the reason why I didn't fully weld this is because, number one, of the movement of that. I gather if I weld it too much, it may not move. But it also allows me to take it apart again if there was something wrong with my geometry in the end or something like that. But I think we're doing pretty good here. You know, I mean, I don't know how you can tell you're straight, but other than I put the you put the bolt in it, because that's just it. I was like playing with it, and I'm like, this bolt is not, you know, it was binding a little bit because it was, you know, moving a little bit, and now that I made sure. So that's what you want. You want zero effort to get it in. because you know that one's straight, and it looks straight. I mean, it's where it was. I pretty much had it bottomed out, you know, on this thing. That's where it was hidden there. So up was all the way. So rather than remind myself I got to pull it up, and just in case it falls down again, it doesn't make sense, because pulling on this belt and everything, it might be an issue. Hopefully pulling on the belt, it doesn't make it move, you know, for any reason. You know, like ruin the welds. Like I should have done more weld, but I don't think so. The only other thing I'm going to do differently is I'm not going to use bolts. I'm going to buy studs, because this is a pain in the ass, because you have to loosen the fan all the way, and it's really not that user friendly. So I'd rather buy 2 studs, put them in, and I got to be cognizant of how much sticks out, of course. But you get an open end wrench, it could be all the way here, and you'll still get the nut off, you know. So I'll probably measure that to see what I can get away with. So far so good. Okay, bright and early, sun shines right here. So I got it all back together. It's painted. What I ended up doing here is I put the other piece in that I had before. I have it threaded. It's just flush here. It doesn't need to be any more, you know, because we're not really using this for adjusting, although it technically can. But that was the whole problem before. I had to use a shorter belt, and it was too tight to get on. This really works well, and then you way. Now, based on how far I just put it down, come on, it actually is fine. But I mean, I could make it tighter here to have less adjustment here and have it wrap around more, you know. But I went with this belt. It's a 15500. It's a nice easy number to remember, number one. But in the end, I made it so that the same belt, if I got a different pulley to go the other way, it could technically work. Now, the difference about getting this belt off and on is you do have to remove this to get all the way over here, because they don't have plenty of slack. But then again, look at that, I got it out. Okay, so that's the neat thing about getting it off of a smooth pulley. But now, I got it off the smooth pulley, and now you can go over. So this is basically how it would be with that other pulley that I was talking about. And that looks, you know, just as good, if not even better. But the thing is that I can push, well, not entirely, maybe because the bolt is technically binding now on the top of the hole here. But in reality, the whole thing could technically go in. It's just probably not likely to go in. And ultimately, this is what I have here. Of course, I'm getting a phone call. Hang on. All right, so I was saying is that this, which for some reason it didn't go all the way here. I think it starts to bind at the top. I may flip this guy over, but in reality, it's not really going anywhere. Like I said, the top of the threads are like binding on this, so I don't know how that's going to work out. So ultimately, it's really not a big deal, because it ain't going in, and this is meant for locking down the adjustment. So this is actually going to be just fine. In fact, when I tighten this, I think technically it should move the compressor in that direction, or move the adjustment. Yeah. See, and then that's unscrewing done. So I got to use 2 hands to do that. But this can all be manipulated. It's not really, you know, a huge deal. And I think it's pretty kick-ass. But, you know, I tried to get the pulley from AutoZone, because this is the pulley, the same pulley. And when I was looking at the thing, it said it was 12 millimeter hole, and it's really not a 12 millimeter hole. It's 11.69, and where I measured that the tensioner, it's 1195 millimeters, you know. So that is the true 12 millimeter. It's off by a little bit, and you can't drill out a bearing. So I would have to find another one, you know, that has a true 12 millimeter hole. This is really like technically 11 millimeter hole, That's my opinion. Because it is a small. I believe they use a 10 millimeter bolt on the Dodges, you know. But since it said it, I said, oh, maybe they just made it easy and made it a 12 millimeter hole. It's a little bigger, blah blah blah. You know, so in the end, it's like not a big deal. But I'd have to go, you know, the other way most likely with the threaded one. I think, because like I said, this is technically could go in, you know, whether you start it and you force it. Oh, yeah, there you go. Look at that. Because I just tightened it, I went in. So you don't really want this for that. And it's almost like you got to have a fixed nut here, but then it can't really move too much, and you got to still be able to unscrew it, because when you really want to get the belt off, in some cases, you want it to flip all the way that way. But this is fine, you know. This is going to be just fine, you know. So going under is fine for now. But if there's a problem, it can definitely be worked out. It can be worked out one way or the other, you know. So bring it all the way up. Get this belt back on. What's funny is that kind of wants to wander. I may stick something in there to prevent it from doing that, but it's not a big deal because this really holds it down. But it doesn't really pull it, but it's probably because this is binding. It was moving more before, so I got to be careful how much, you know, tension you put. It could be a lot more tension than you think. And this is a left-hand thread, so to bring it down, bring it up, would be tightened. This is loosened. So that's really loose, obviously. It's really loose, but it's not like a drastic difference. You know, it might just be better just to do a little bit at a time. Could be a little tighter. I think that's the extent of it. Like I said, I never had that happen to me with an AC compressor. It's kind of stupid, but it is what it is, you know. And like I said, this can be still fine-tuned down to tighten it a little bit more, to change this angle a little bit, you know. So that's a possibility where I leave this a little bit loose. I still want to concentrate on the tightness with this thing without going crazy. And like I said, if I tighten that up, that definitely had tension there, but it's still loose. And I think that's pretty good. And then because if I tighten this guy, see, the whole thing is turning, but if I tighten, you know, if I get 2 wrenches and tighten that down, that's not going to go anywhere. And that's definitely going to help. It can't go in. It definitely, the belt is preventing it from going in. If anything, this is helping it prevent it from going out, but it really can't, you know. So it's only when it's up on the top of it, if I got the other kind of pulley, would I have to try to figure out how that is going to work. So see how this goes and take it from there. Okay, running it, as you can tell, it's perfectly straight again. But I have the adjuster right there. You can see the belt just grabs the back half of it, minus the very little edge, so it's perfect. And I was talking about, like, I could see it kind of, I guess the whole engine moving or not, or just moving independently. But you can't, like, by hand, I was actually able to make this move. And the thing is, because it's pulling down, it's not going to move in reality, you know? So I don't really see it being an issue. It can stay just like this, I think. And I think it's pretty snazzy. You know, like I said, I wouldn't mind having it the other way with the pulley up front there. It should use the same belt. Problem is that just finding a bearing that fits in the middle of that other thing, not a big deal. You can go either way. I don't see it being an issue at all. So I just like laid this in. Very nice old school vibe to this uh, fan shroud. I'd like to use the original things here to somehow make it mount, which makes it more of a project. But it's, you know, it just shouldn't be so bad. I might try that because you know it comes with these things which are fine, but I really don't like going through the radiator, particularly the old one. Like you got to push it through the fins and then through these as well. And because I already did this, and I could just do it here, but it kind of makes it more difficult, you know, to go through them both. But it makes it even more difficult just to go through the radiator, which if you wanted to remove it, you'd want it on the outside here. So then it's probably going to be reconfigured again because they don't make the small radiator anymore. So, but this is nice. I like this. Looks good. So it's been a while to get these. I thought they would be easy, but they're not. Very hard actually. The big line, which is up here, that's a 90 degree, and that down there is a 45. Because I just didn't figure. I went the other way at first, and then I had to go and do it the other way around because you can't get a 90-degree bend on the small line then when the other one is 90 degree. But in the end, I had to kind of go up and around, which still I wouldn't have had a room to do this without doing that. Now this guy here has a lot of, you see a lot of line, and then it goes to a little piece of rubber and then to the unit. You know, I was trying to avoid seeing all this, and the thing is, it would have been nice if this was up, but yeah, maybe I could have used a 40. Well, first I would have used 90, this tight 90 here. This basically converts it, but it just kind of throws it off, like kind of far, you know, because if I put this in, it can't swivel up enough to even make a 45, and so I was kind of fighting with it. I mean, as you can see, that's not really a 45. It's somewhere between, you know, 45 and 180, or whatever the difference is when you look at this. Technically, the opposite of 45 is like what, 135 degrees. So instead of 130, it's somewhere between 135 and 180. So it's like another 10 or 15 degrees difference, and you know, putting this other piece in doesn't really help me. I thought it would. I was trying to go backwards and go behind, but you know, every time you build it out here, you get a little bit more of a problem. So that's why this guy here, which started off as a 180 piece, basically they make these pieces that are aluminum, they're 180, and then you put your line in, depending on how you have it set up in your car. That's why you would need a 180. Well, I ended up using it and bending it, you know, not straight, but I bent it like a pretzel to get around and to miss the other line because you really don't want them touching each other. Um, yeah, so not touching and crisscrossing. I said that one's hot, the other one's cold. So I wanted the cold to have the rubber around it on the inside, so it kept the cold in. And I really didn't want the heat. I wanted it to be a lot of rubber, but it just wasn't going to happen. And you know, to make it better, I could have just wrapped a straight line here that I would have bent. You know, and that's why, like, I had it with this one. I basically had to go out to the right to go in to give it the angle that it needs. You know, I suppose I could have done a bunch of these guys, which these things are like 20 bucks a piece, $24 each, something like that. I think I got them cheaper though online. And they're the smaller ones, so they're not like the number 10s were that much money. But I managed to do without them because, you know, truthfully, if you can not have the 90 degree, then you don't have, even though it's on it's just pressure, so it doesn't really recognize that there's angles and stuff. So in the end, you can just, you know, if you don't put those in, I just feel it's less transition, you know, to where it's got to go. Under pressure, it doesn't really matter, you know, because no matter how many bends you have, I think you know, the pressure makes up for it. But I'd rather not have the bends just in case. I got to hook up wiring, but I'm probably going to put a, what do you call it? I'm going to put a vacuum pump on here and see if it can hold a vacuum and take it from there. But the lines are pretty much done. As I showed in the other video, that it really, like, it would take a lot of effort to move the thing, and it's pretty much wedged up against, the threads are wedged up against here, which isn't the ideal thing, but it's tightened, and this thing is tightened, so it's not really moving from there, you know. So I'm not terribly worried. I mean, the only other thing I was thinking is it was like some kind of wedge to put here at this angle, and put a nut on that side as well, so it kind of holds it and prevents it from going in this way. I mean, just any nut on the inside would probably, work. Um, I'm hoping that after I did all this, and being that it's higher, I should have extra length, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue here. And but I did kind of have weird angles with this, and I probably would have, in hindsight, I would have changed the angle of these hoses at where they come out. But that's fine if it's over. Um, I'm not really terribly worried about that part. Um, so it kind of comes up. So as soon as you goes up and comes away, it's away from the hot hose. But that's why you got these guys here. It's not unlikely that you don't see that touching something you would hope that it didn't touch. But it should be fine. And the high side is going to be hot, so it's not even an issue. I didn't even have to wrap it in anything. It was more so just not get it nicked by anything sharp. And the low hose is the one I was more concerned about. Of course, they didn't put any rubber thing over there because I wanted to see it go in, and I don't want it to catch fire. I don't want it, because I don't really know if this is really the best stuff for under the hood here. This was the really expensive stuff because that's all they had in that size. But I'm pretty happy. Hopefully, I didn't cover up the microphone. So just to reiterate, I was just saying that all this is working out really well. I don't see this moving, even though while the car is off, I can go like that. When the engine is spinning, it's always pushing it down. So I was trying to lift it while I was running, and it was like impossible. So I think it kind of acts like a shock absorber in a certain sense. But like I said, I can put a wedge here of some sort. I can just put a nut and let it only contact one side. Put a nut going in this direction. Therefore, you have to loosen both nuts in order to play with that. And the nut will prevent it from going either way. But it almost acts like a shock absorber on the belt. Like I said, naturally wants to go that way, but God forbid kickback. It's not moving far, but if it moves, it's it maybe is less shock. I don't know. We shall see. I got to tighten up these guys, so when all these guys are tight, it may have a less tendency to even move then. But I might add another nut. What the hell, make some kind of wedge at that angle, and try to figure that out. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. Really shouldn't. So with that, I think I got to clean up today a little bit, and have to get to working on another car. And yeah, things are looking pretty good for the whole AC system as far as how it stands. The hard wiring and the hard. That's just, I got to do the electrical wiring, but the hard plumbing and how everything went together with the bracket. So far so good. Still got to do the fan shroud, which I think is going to come out pretty good, but it's going to be another project where I got to make something that attaches to what's here already. I think that'll make it most user friendly. I like to make things user friendly because a lot of these things that have these things that just poke right through everything, I kind of don't like that, but sometimes you got to deal with it. It is what it is, and that's just it. You have to deal with it that way. But like just like this, I got these brackets that go into here, and then I made them use there. Similar to that, I can make it go with these existing ones here and still tighten to the thing, whether I weld it so there's no, there's no bolts like resting on the radiator, because that's my only problem. I was thinking of a carriage bolt, which would be fine. It really wouldn't hurt the radiator, but just in case, I could also put foam behind it. There's a lot of different things you do. But if I welded it where it came out from underneath, it'd be just a tack weld on this side. So it'll be a flat piece of metal, so it shouldn't be an issue then. Just got to clean off some of the black and then repaint everything. That's my idea, I think. We shall see. But looking pretty good. So the big line there, because I heard it echoing and I didn't think of anything because it was holding a decent amount of vacuum. So there was an O-ring in there, but when I brought it out here, it just kind of like fell, and I couldn't even find it to see. Maybe it got nicked on the way in or something like that. I dropped it and I can't see shit. So I put a new one, and guess what? I sucked it down more than before. Before I could only get 25. Now I got 28, almost 30, 29. And I've had it off now with the gauges closed, and it's been holding this vacuum for at least a half an hour. So that's a good thing, which is what it's supposed to do. So now I got to do wiring and, hold up the thing again. Kind of working on this car. Those two axle shafts, getting bearings. I put bearings on them. But I got to do the brakes. The axle just gushed out gear lube all over the brakes. And the wheel cylinders, because it also overheated the brakes and whatnot. So I think I can take this off, and it's pretty good now.